Now, I'm going to talk about the possibility of urban villages. David actually wanted to impose in Singapore on me, and I just didn't reply to his email in a very rude way. And the reason for that is because I'd like to start from actually the global imagination of an eco village and whether that itself is a possibility. And the possibility is actually problematic because we tend to in the kind of international sense, we tend to imagine the eco village as a rural place rather than an urban place. So the very possibility of an urban eco village is not quite there, even in the international imaginoscapes. All right. So this is a definition that's being adopted worldwide in the Global Eco Village Network. So you can see the definition there. And these are the kind of sites that are kind of given as examples. They are a bit small, but basically you can see they're mostly rural. Right? Those that are in Asia are definitely rural, and they're often Gandhian inspired, all right, with kind of spiritual focus on, self-sufficiency and whatnot, and so on and so forth. So it's about actually world withdrawal, if you want to put it that way, withdrawal from the world, from the urban world, from the capitalist world, to have a different kind of spiritual focus on lifestyle, ways of life. All right, there are only two urban sites, and they are in Germany. One is suburban and the other one is urban. And the urban one is in Berlin, in which they took over a disused warehouse and turned it into a hippie village, basically, right, or hipster village. So this is a kind of the state of the international imagination of eco-village. And why am I interested in eco-village? Well, mainly because in Singapore, this word has started to appear as a cool word to be used in terms of land use, land development, and in a very micro scale, in a small scale, right? Not citywide. And so Eco Village, this is one example. Eco Village to take root in Kallang Park. Kallang is near the city center and is being touted as a kind of leisure and sports center for Singapore. All right, and it's so they're going to develop this stretch here, all right, into an eco village, and the state is going to basically outsource it to WWS, which is the Waterways Watch Society, which is an NGO that has been helping the state to clean up the river. So one could argue that this is kind of a neoliberalization of the developmental state, right? In which the developmental state outsources its functions to NGOs like this, and in return, a kind of patronage relations build up over the years. It gets transformed into territorial relationship in the sense that WWS is then given the contract, all right, to basically then do what they want to this stretch of land. And to introduce their own programs, their own buildings, their own facilities into the program, all right, with the approval of the state, all right, with the grant of land and whatnot, all right. So this is one example of how Eco Village is kind of imagined, all right, in a kind of patronage, developmental state outsourcing of its functions to NGOs, all right. The other one is more large scale, all right, development of semi-rural, peri-urban kind of areas, like this place in Kranji area, which is to the north. It called New Tube Village, right? So because it becomes Nutopia Urban Design Plan, and this is actually based on a paper by NUS School of Design and Environment fellows who did a kind of urban design plan, collaborate with the URA and the government to kind of come up with an imagination of how this rural area can be redeveloped into kind of agritainment, an eco-village site in which you have local tourists going there to experience real chickens instead of fried chickens, and stuff like that, right? To see eggs, being actually laid and whatnot, all right? And at the same time to integrate housing needs into it. So you have low density, medium density, high density, but high density in the sense that it is not too high, right? Because in Singapore it goes up to 50 stories now, public housing. But here they are imagining it to be 8-10 stories. So it's at a scale in which it's still seen as a village, as an eco village. All right. Now my argument is that I'll just leave you these pictures for a while, and my argument here is kind of a follow-on from the provocation, which is that you have this top-down kind of urban planning perspectives. Right, so like in the two examples, they are very top down. The state outsourcing, all right, the facilities and the land to a client, NGO, the state redesigning a rural area, a farmland area, and turning into an agri-tainment, eco-tourism site. Okay, so you have all these top-down kind of urban planning, top-down kind of design approaches, which has, after maybe about 50 years of doing that, it has wiped out all bottom-up demands, all right, for urban planning and design. So if you go and ask, just like Tim asking the students, right? If you go ask students, so what do you want, if you are given the power to transform your own community, your own neighborhood, your own public housing neighborhood, they will come up with a blank. They will not know what to do. There is no demand. There is no desire. I think we are suffering, in a sense, from a cultural deficit, an imagination deficit. We do not know how to imagine anymore, even for our neighborhood spaces, all right? Even for our public housing neighborhood places. This is where I used to live for about 10 years, in Punggol, to the northeast, a public housing estate. And it's touted as kind of like the public housing estate for the 21st century, with a waterway, canal, a lot of leisure facilities, a lot of greenery. The first eco public housing cluster is situated there with some solar panels and centrally located refuse and waste disposal systems. So a lot of experiments are being done there by the state, again top down, all right, done for citizens. The citizens consume these facilities and planning and design elements, but they do not actively shape them, all right? Nor do they care to actively shape them. They don't care. They just want to have their flat, and that's it. All right. As long as their flat is cheap, their mortgage is being paid off, they're happy. All right. So the problem with that, if the Singapore model is going to be is going to hold throughout Asia, is that basically you're going to have not really disenchanted citizenry, but a citizenry that's well taken care of but apathetic. They don't care. There's no need and no desire for bottom-up planning, right? In that sense. So the top-down planning fits them fine, right? So it comes with a lot of frustration, of course, with those of us who are either from Western worlds or who are trained in Western worlds with more progressive ideas of bottom-up planning and so on and so forth, to come to these kind of places and to see that people just don't care about bottom-up planning and design. All right, this is Punggol. As you can see, these are imaginations by the state. All right, this is a photo actually. So I mixed one in among the photos. Comes true and you can't quite tell the difference between reality and imagination. The imagination of the state is really powerful. It realizes itself, all right? But what it does is that there is no possibility of imagining this space as an urban eco-village. And I'll give you an example of where I lived, which is one of those blocks here. And one of my students actually did a study. He did an honor student, and he did a double honors, and he studied actually the possibility of doing urban farming, small-scale urban farming, okay, by residents of these flats. So he came up with all these carbon-activated charcoal with boxes, planter boxes. He gave it out to families to plant them, and the families were pleasantly surprised to grow at least 1 day's worth in a week, worth of vegetables. All right, which that means if they times 7, you can actually cover the entire vegetable intake for the entire family. And not only that, because the planter boxes extend to the corridors, the public corridors, and to the lift lobbies, they actually promote community at a small scale on each floor. So for example, the 10th floor, you have 10 units, and the 10 units actually come together to kind of do their own urban farming, growing tomatoes and bai chai and whatnot, and all the Chinese vegetables. So there is an actual possibility of actually developing an eco-village in a sense. But the imagination was not there. All right? And of course, the political support is not there because he also studied community gardens, which are, again, done through patronage networks, through residents committee, and through the People's Association, which is controlled by the government and actualized as a kind of stand-in for the ruling party. So only certain privileged residents will get to have plots of land in which to plant their jackfruit and papaya and other kind of fruits. So, for example, the community gardens at my neighborhood was completely fenced up. Kids like to throw things in to vandalize the place. So they will come up with more security systems like CCTV and whatnot and locks. A gardener actually gets employed to take care of the place, so it becomes, again, a kind of gated, strangely enough, community within the public space. And then you have techie fountains and other kinds of stuff in which they turn it into a barbecue area for themselves. All right. So community gardens turn out not to be gardens, but just basically territorial spaces in which the clients of the patronage state then allows themselves to assert themselves as a private space within the public space. All right. So the possibility of urban eco-village, there's no possibility, basically. Right? We are suffering from an imagination deficit. We are suffering from a cultural deficit. And I'm completely depressed and depressing. And this is depressing, right? But this is a challenge. This is precisely the challenge, I think, for Asia and Asia urbanism, which is the imagination deficit. Thank you.